This is my critical reflection and evaluation process as part of my media coursework main task. Question 1. How does your product use or challenge conventions, and how does it represent social groups or issues? The primary conventions for independent magazines involve the use of minimalism, whilst creating a certain amount of shock or awe through their uniqueness and vibrancy, whether that is through quirky main images, unusual layouts for fonts and texts, or unconventional and highly analytical content of one particular subject. Also, the tone of the magazine has to be aesthetically pleasing for various reasons, which make each of them stand out from the crowd and compete with competitive mainstream magazines. I feel that through my coursework, my product has both met and challenged these conventions. For instance, I feel I achieved minimalism through my construct of my contents page, whilst injecting colour and unusual aspects like my choice of style and layout, whilst having colour palettes that worked well with the lighter pink and connoted the season of summer in which this issue would have been released during the month of June. This image uses the conventions of indie magazines, however it also challenges these conventions. For instance, on Dazed and Confused, another independent magazine, on their contents page there is a monochromatic colour scheme that satisfies the magazine's elements of minimalism, whereas throughout my constructs I have used a common colour scheme of dusky pink, grey and white throughout, as I feel that it injected personality and a sense of vibrancy to my magazine without it being too heightened or over the top. With regards to my images, I feel that these challenge the conventions of more popular indie magazines in the sense that they are not particularly quirky, but they are more down to earth and focused on the individual or the reader, which makes the tone of the magazine more intimate. This, I feel, challenges other magazines in this genre, as many incorporate images of models in alternative fashion or having the models create unusual, wacky poses for the camera. The only exception to this point being the pose of Cara, taken on holiday, and it's of her on a beach in a rather quirky pose. However, I really like this as it shows her complete outfit and the contrast between the light sand and her dark swimsuit, along with her multicoloured bandana, which also worked really well with the light pink filter over the top of it. The mise-en-scène in terms of costume and makeup for the photo shoots within typical indie magazines like Indie and Gentlewoman aren't too wildly drastic, and this is where my images meet these conventions. And with Stalpa being both a travel and fashion magazine, I feel that both my main image for my cover photo and for my double-page spread are appropriate, as the cover image meets the typical conventions of an indie magazine cover where the model is not smiling and she is not standing in a mainstream pose like typical magazines such as Vogue and Elle essentially create with their models. In terms of social groups and issues, I feel that mainly the social dynamic that is represented is young adults with a passion to embrace their identities and also who have an interest in travelling and exploring the wider world and looking after themselves as well as their situation, whether that is regarding the management of their wardrobe or of their workload. I also would want my indie magazine to be attractive to young adults on a tighter budget, as independent magazines can be extortionately expensive, as many are released quarter yearly or annually. Question 2. How does your product engage with audiences, and how would it be distributed as a real media text? Well, during my research for Stalpa, I turned to my friends back in the UK who are either at uni or who have just left. This was admittedly an accident on my behalf, but a happy one, as I realised there was a gap in the market here. And I enjoyed asking questions as to how they wanted Stalpa to look, what the content would be like, as it was as if they were building the kind of magazine that they wanted, which was extremely helpful for me within the general construct of my magazine. I feel that any audience wants a magazine that looks and feels professional with independent magazines. I found it hard to keep audiences captivated whilst trying to stick to the conventions of the magazine. In the end, as you can see from my double page spread, you can't exactly read it, but on my blog it demonstrates how I went for a more friendly and intimate vibe with a contrasting edgy tone through the darker colour palettes of this main image here, which I feel is important in any kind of media text to come across as though it is just you and the reader without a barrier in between the two. So I think that there has to be an element of intimacy or like a conversational tone between reader and magazine editor, for example, possibly. As well as having a little something extra that allows your magazine to stick out amongst competition. I feel I achieved this through a conversational tone in my double page spread, as mentioned previously, and although initially my magazine encompassed photographs of myself plus other friends of mine, which would carry on that friendly tone, it didn't give the desired effect. In the end, in terms of the pictures, I wanted them to be trendy and classy, whilst meeting the conventions featuring a front-face model and without smiling, which this cover photo here, which was my first draft, did not do at all, even though it had good colour palettes and, you know, good colour contrast, and it also carried through that friendly tone. It didn't satisfy or meet the general conventions or needs of an independent magazine, which is where I was lacking. If this were a media text, I would want to distribute my issues on a 3-monthly basis, ideally from March to June to September and again to December. This is because these months cross over all 4 seasons, and I feel that this would be more engaging for readers, as content such as holiday destinations, fashion pics, would be interchangeable according to seasons. For example, a Back to University issue, possibly in September, featuring not only style pics for the season, but also holiday destination ideas for the upcoming year, which gives my target audience enough time to save financially. Thus, providing useful tips and ideas on the subject can really benefit my demographic that would encourage them to make a purchase. Along with this seasonal theme, I would alternate the colour scheme of my magazine season dependent, for instance, orange for autumn, or perhaps a dark purple for winter. Also, by releasing an issue every 3 months, this would give individuals enough time to save up the money to buy the magazine. Despite the fact that I would only be charging £7 for Stalper, it is still a lot of money for the majority of university students, although it is not as pricey as other independent magazines like Kinfolk, for example, which sell their magazine via a subscription of $75 for a year. I would also like to sell my magazine via a subscription. However, I would whereby people can purchase all 4 seasons in advance for a discounted 15% off the promotional price. So they can get all 4 seasons in advance, but for a discount. Individuals will get charged either yearly or monthly, as I feel this would be most convenient for my target audience. With Stalper, I would ideally release it in the UK, Ireland, and have it translated and distributed in some parts of Europe. To start off with, so countries like Spain, Portugal or France, and then through viral marketing, have the word spread about the magazine, which would take the name of Stalper to other places. This method of promotion is not uncommon for independent magazines, as through social media is sometimes the only way in which they would get distinguishable recognition, as often they don't have enough money or they have a limited budget as to produce the magazine and distribute it as well. Finally, in terms of my targeted audience, is mainly the demographic that I included within my questionnaire, largely female-based and ranging from the ages of 18 to 23 years old and around the stages of E to C.